Are we streaming? We're streaming. We're streaming, Mr. Milo Pants. We're streaming. We're streaming. I don't know if you can see Milo on the stream. Can you see Milo on the stream? Let's take a look. No, he's over on the side. He's such a good little boy, though. He's such a good little boy, my good little precious little man. Aren't you the best little guy? Yeah, my sweetheart. How you guys all doing today? How you guys all doing today? I worked today, so today is going to be something of a sleepy stream, but I feel like I got a good amount of links here. I feel well organized. I actually had a really good day, so I can't complain about it. I'm going to see if I can move my Monday to a Thursday instead, because what's happening to me is I'm working this like weekend, which the weekend at this cafe is just like absolutely crazy busy and an enormously difficult kind of thing. It's just like customer after customer after customer, and then I hit Monday and it's like this weird little shift at the end of this like ridiculous thing. I'd much rather have like a slow shift and then like the weekend and propel into the week. Anyway. I hope you were all doing really well. I actually had a pretty decent weekend. Busy as always, right? Busy as always. The experience I'm having at this cafe that I'm working at right now is like new ownership has come in, big money is coming in. Like these guys are taking over. Like I work in a place where there's like there's the cafe I work at, and then there's a bunch of other buildings around, and it's like a historic site, right? So it's actually quite nice. You work in this historic site where there's like lots of nature and there are ponds and it's the brickworks, so it's like an old it's where all the bricks were made. Here in the city of Toronto, there's red stone brick was used for a lot of the construction here, and so you've got a lot of beautiful red brick buildings that have been made, and the brickworks is where those bricks were made, right? And so there's all this historic stuff. And these guys are coming in, and not only are they taking over the cafe that I live in, they're taking over everything, it looks like. And they're going to be part of the whole thing. So there's this, like, really weird moment where I live in a society that is largely in decay. But here's this, like, one little place in this one little spot where capital has decided to, like, swoop in. And there's actually going to be, like, things happening and growth occurring. So it's kind of odd to be part of it. And I know my position is very simple. Like, this is my third time moving from like a mom and pop shop or an independent person into a corporate owned entity. Hey, Nova Scotia, how you doing? And the last two times I got completely railroaded, right? Like the first time I lost my position completely. The new people that came in, they didn't give a fuck about the years of work I had put in. I had been angling for a promotion. They didn't care at all. And that was very frustrating. And so I ended up leaving the company because it's like I basically started over again. And so like it was like 2 years of my life just sort of like, okay, gone. And then the next time it happened, I was actually in a position. I had managed to just get in a position that was decent, but then they eliminated my position. So I got laid off from that, and that happened like right before COVID. And so now here it is happening a third time, and I'm hoping that this time I make the transition and everything is fine, and I learn from my previous experiences and learn from the experiences that I have with analyzing capitalism and analyzing everything. I feel very much like there's kind of a Shakespearean Doom to Bloom. Good to see you too, bud. I feel like very much there's this kind of character that exists in Shakespearean style literature and Victorian plays and things like this, which is the clever servant, right? The servant that schemes and plans and is very Machiavellian, but also very understanding of his position, right? And I feel like that's very much me. That, like, I'm gonna try to do the best work that I can and be the best that I possibly can be, but like, you know, I gotta play this game, and I think that's how I have to look at it. And it seems to be working out. Everything seems to be fine as long as I remain handsome, well spoken, and provide the best customer service I possibly can. I think everything will come up roses. Yeah, right. Under capitalism? From Judd Legum, if all the unpaid care work by women across the globe was carried out by a single company, it would have an annual revenue of $10 trillion, 43 times that of Apple. Until we recognize this injustice and do something about it, neither economic nor gender equality is achievable. Well, also, like, so much for the idea that, like, if you give people a basic income, they'll just be lazy. Oh, really? Seems like most of the work that happens is unpaid in the first place, right? Seems like humans rather like working, and humans are rather fond of doing work, and humans put the effort in, and humans do all the kind of stuff, that it's turns out that it's actually the capitalists that are the problem. Who fucking knew? Who fucking knew, you guys? This guy. This guy fucking knew. That's who. This guy fucking knew. So, I say we start off with something with a little bit of levity to it. At this stage in the game, if you are still an Elon Musk simp, if you are still acting as though Elon Musk is this super intelligent, smart person who totally deserves the status he's achieved and is absolutely good with everything we do, right? Is absolutely good with it, and we should absolutely have a person like Elon Musk around us. If you still believe that, at this point, you're a fucking loser, and we get to make fun of you. Like, period. Like, we get to bully you, we get to treat you like a stupid idiot, right? Like if somebody was walking around being like, yeah, Jeffrey Epstein was a good guy, we would be like, you're disgusting. I think that we should say that kind of shit about the Elon Musk simps. Like, here's a very clear example of the enormity of Elon Musk being a complete and total loser. Here, let's just watch this exchange happen. This happens publicly on Twitter. Elon Musk, at Eric Fraunhofer. Twitter is super slow on Android. What have you done to fix that? At Elon Musk, from Aaron Fraunhofer. We've done a bunch of work to improve performance, and we found that it correlates well with increasing UAM and AD speed spent. Agree, there's plenty of room for performance improvements on Android. However, I don't think the number of requests is the primary issue. For a cold start of the app, there are 20 requests to load home timeline. Most of the requests are non-blocking and happen in the background. This includes things like images, user settings, hash flags, etc. I think there are 3 reasons the app is slow. First, it's bloated with features that get little usage. Second, we have accumulated years of tech debt as we have traded velocity and revenue features over performance. Third, we spend a lot of time waiting for network responses. One performance-focused holdback showed a casual increase of 40 UAM. For reference, mixed media only showed plus 10 million UAM. If we want to improve things, we need to make trade-offs that favor performance over new feature work. Frankly, we should probably prioritize some big rewrites to combat 10 plus years of tech debt and make a call on deleting features aggressively. Elon Musk's response? He's fired. This man is a clown. This man is a complete and total clown. He asked this person a public request, a public answer, a public thing. Hey, Gino, how you doing? Great and good to see you too, bud. He asked someone a straightforward question, right? What Twitter's super slow on Android. What have we done to fix that? And Eric gave him a fairly robust answer, if you ask me. Polite, knowledgeable, with solutions, right? Elon Musk's response: publicly fired. This man's a clown. The fact that we have allowed him to have control of anything, the fact that there is any bottleneck by which any amount of permissions go through for things like this is getting us to Mars, you guys. This is getting us to Mars. We're for sure getting to Mars with this, right? We're going to take off into space and we're going to make it to Mars with this guy at the helm. 100%, that's for sure happening. Like, the people who actually ever believed that should be ridiculed. We should make fun of them. And if there are still people who are actually believing that that's real, we we've got to completely like cut them out of reasonable conversation because they're incapable of rational thought. Like, and that's just the truth. Like, you cannot trust people who still think that this is something to aspire to. Like, it's embarrassing. Like, we're in a, like, that. I think the thing that doesn't get hit on enough with this Elon Musk, this Twitter thing, like, I think there's lots of people that are pointing at it and you're like, ha, yeah, it's a funny, oh, it's funny. And I think there are lots of people who are saying that, like, yeah, this looks bad on Elon Musk and makes him look like all that kind of stuff. You know what it really does? It makes our country, it makes the country of America look fucking stupid. That this is one of the richest men in America. This is one of the men that is at the top of the, he ascended the meritocracy. He's standing atop the hierarchy, right? By all the statements and all the arguments that have ever been made by the defenders of capitalism, this is the guy that we're supposed to be pointing at. And he's stupid. I've been saying it for several years now. He's below average intelligence. He is not a smart person. And now he is publicly giving us all the evidence we could possibly need to show that that's the case. He is at best maliciously cruel and flippantly disregards people. At best. And at worst, he's a fail son who was handed money in order to do things that anyone would have done anyway. Like, what's his big idea that gave him his big start? Let's do banking, but on the internet. Oh, super genius there. Nobody was definitely going to do that, right? Certainly wasn't going to be like a bank that was going to do that, right? Like, just because you snuck in, because your billionaire apartheid dad managed to give you the money to be able to do it, doesn't mean you're smart. Right? If Elon Musk is born 10 years later, get fucked. Like, get fucked. What other grift is he going to run? Like, what other grift is he going to do? Yeah, leave Twitter. I always thought Twitter was dumb. It's a terrible way to communicate. It's so bad. It's just like, literally, it's the same as just walking out onto a balcony and screaming. And just hoping that there are people underneath the balcony that are like, oh, good point. Right? And they like hold up a sign. It's just the absolute worst fucking way to actually talk to one another. He's the perfect representative of American capitalism at the moment. Well, and the same thing is happening with, you got a similar story happening with fucking Bezos. Right? You got a similar story happening with Bezos. That Bezos's his stock portfolio went down by $1 trillion, right? He's laying off a bunch of people, and he's simultaneously turning around and being like, I'm going to donate a bunch of wealth and all that kind of stuff for tax evasion purposes, obviously. And it's just like this is it, guys. Like, this is what capitalism is. Like, we can't build anything, we can't do anything, we can't achieve anything, we can't reach any goals. We can't come to a consensus. We can't solve any problems. Why? That's why. Right? This is your society. And it is worth talking about because I don't have any articles on this, and I meant to actually look some up, but I ran out of time and definitely forgot. But like, it is manifesting in American politics, right? Like, there was supposed to be this interesting red wave that was supposed to happen. And it didn't happen, and we've got all these commentators, including people like Shapiro, right? Like, people on the right being, like, upset about it and mad about it and being like, hey, what the fuck? Like, we were supposed to have this red wave, it didn't happen. And what it shows you, and I think if I manage to get the gumption to actually do a video tomorrow, I think I will talk about the fact that there was no red wave shows you that America doesn't give a fuck about its kids. Like, it doesn't give a fuck what they think. It doesn't give a fuck what Gen Z thinks at all. That if you're a Gen Z kid, they don't care what you have to say. They're not asking you. They're not polling you. They're not trying to go where you are to find out what you think, right? And the fact that there was no red wave is all the evidence you need to see that that's the case, right? And because we've got polling data that comes out, like post-polling data, that shows that they were wrong about what Gen Z was going to do by upwards of 150% in some cases. That literally they thought Gen Z was doing this and they were over here. Like, this isn't a discrepancy of 2 or 3 percentage points. This is clearly they didn't give a fuck what they thought, right? They don't care. And like, Gen Z kids aren't picking up the phone. And they're not having conversations. And these guys are literally like, oh, well, Gen Z kids don't care, so we're just not going to bother. Instead of actually being like, okay, red alarm, red alert, right? Like, a massive group of people who are voters, right? We don't have information on them. How do we get the information? Don't worry about it. And you can see it in how these fucking right-wingers are talking about it. These Gen Z kids are brainwashed and they don't have any clue about what's actually going on. No, dude, you don't care what they think. That's what it's come down to. Like, I keep saying it, and a big reason why I continue to do this channel is in the hopes that, like, Gen Z kids will get a clue and realize that you've been totally abandoned. You've been totally abandoned. That they don't even care to ask you what you think. They don't even care to know. And then when the results occur, and when it turns out that, oh, it mattered, then what do? They bitch about it. They don't go, oh, well, we got to work on our polling, and we better figure out how these kids are communicating. We better go where they go and actually find out what they think and actually find out what they're saying. No, none of that, right? Oh, these damn kids. And this is like this is literally the people who are supposed to be saying, like, well, this is kind of what's going on in the politics, right? They don't care at all. Like, this is the level of our abandonment. This is the level that people have been completely abandoned. The boomers, Gen X, and more kids, I hate to say it, millennials, do not give a fuck what Gen Z think, right? And to the point where if Gen Z walked up to them and started bludgeoning them with a fucking mallet, they would just, like, people would just be like, oh, what's happening? I don't understand. Like, we don't care. Like, we literally think that you guys should just, like, go work at Tim Hortons and shit. Straight up. Straight up. Yeah, sounds like they're shooting themselves in the foot more and more. Yeah, because they can't do anything else. They don't care to know what's going on. They don't, because they have no incentive to understand anything. Like, I think that's kind of the key of all of this kind of stuff. Giving someone $200 billion detaches them so significantly from the reality of what existence actually is for the vast majority of people, and they have no incentive whatsoever to actually look at what it is to live in the world and exist and be a real person, right? And so they can just do what they want. Like, the sad reality about this Twitter fiasco is that Elon Musk is going to ruin a bunch of people's lives. He's going to absolutely destroy Twitter. It's going to become unusable. Everyone's going to move from it. Like, take a look. Fake tweets from verified Twitter accounts spur real losses for Lilly and Lockheed stock. This is an actual thing that happened, right? People created fake accounts, pretended to be Lockheed Martin and Lilly, and put out fake tweets, and the stock price plunged. That's a real thing that fucking happened. And eventually people are going to glom on to the reality that, oh, shit that happens on Twitter is not real. And so if it's not real and it shouldn't have an impact on what happens in the world, then why am I engaging with it? And people are going to leave this thing in droves, or if they stay, they're just going to be there to troll everybody. It's going to turn into a fucking fart joke. And the sad reality is that after Elon Musk destroys this thing, he can just go, oh, well, and walk away. Because it doesn't matter to him. It doesn't matter at all. The people whose lives he crushed, the people he just said publicly, this guy's fired, Doesn't matter to him. He doesn't care. He doesn't care. Like, and when you create a society and when you create a culture in which you have people with enormous power that have no incentive whatsoever to care about anybody around them, right? Then you're in decline. Period. You're just in decline. And you're not going to recover. Like, how do we recover from this? Without, standing up and saying this guy shouldn't have the money he has. Right? This person should not have this power. Right? But if you say that, what are you? Oh, you're a dirty commie, and everybody knows communism collapses. Everybody knows communism has failed every time it tries, you guys. Communism, communism. So, fuck us, right, for trying to come up with actual solutions to real problems. I think this is my favorite thing that's going on right now with these right-wing grifters. That these right-wing grifters, all they're doing is standing up and pointing out problems, but they're not offering any solutions. Right? Like, you take a guy like Peterson, right? All he ever does is point out problems. Like, but he has no solutions. And if you have no solutions, then why should we listen to you? And it's very, very simply. Like, it's not enough to be like, well, that's a problem. Well, what's the solution? Oh, you have none? Then shut the fuck up. Right? Then shut the fuck up. It's as simple as that. Like, and these right-wing grifters and these capitalists are watching a system collapse going, that's a problem. But they're offering no solutions. And so what we should do is we should put them into geriatric care homes. And just be like, bye-bye. Like, we literally have no interest in listening to you anymore. Because you're providing no solutions and all you're doing is getting in the way. It's like literally what is happening in the world today. And Gen Z, the people who we're not talking to and we don't care to talk to and we're not interested in what they have to say or think or anything. Like, we don't give a fuck what Gen Z thinks. We don't care. Right? But now they're swinging elections. And now they're actually like changing what's happening in the culture. And what are you ending up with? You're ending up with a bunch of demented geriatrics with all the wealth griping about the kids they refuse to listen to while they actively destroy the society. Like, and they in that actively destroy the society are the geriatric old people. Like, and it's fucking embarrassing. It's embarrassing to be part of this culture at this point. Like, we're not building anything, we're not doing anything, we're not achieving anything. We're more and more falling behind, and guess what? Guess what? China sees it. Our competitors, if you like, see it. This is from the Global Times. Chinese society is moving forward, while West has lost perspective of future. China has had an epic decade since 2012, particularly in the last 5 years, which have been momentous and extraordinary. The country has successfully dealt with major challenges, including turbulent developments in the Hong Kong Special Administrative Region and the COVID-19 epidemic. The 20th National Congress of the Communist Party of China has laid out plans for the strategic missions and major measures in the next 5 years, getting the efforts to build a modern socialist country in all respects off to a good start. In an interview with Global Times, reporter Jia Wenzing, Jan Tarowski, and director of the Beijing office of the German Political Foundation, the Rosa-Luxemburg Foundation, shared his views on the CPC's role in China's development and contributions in the world. I'm not going to read the whole fucking thing. I'm too tired. I'm too tired for that. But, like, China is openly flaunting the decline of the West, that China is ascending, right? They're not pretending anything else is going on. And we are sitting here in Canada being totally left out of everything. Trudeau left out in the cold as China's Xi engages in a whirlwind of diplomacy at G20. So literally, Xi Jinping shows up at the G20, talks to everybody, connects with everybody, is attempting to do some diplomacy, doesn't even bother addressing Canada. Doesn't even look in our direction. Right? Get fucked, Canada. Get completely fucked. We deserve it. We're a backwards people. We refuse to take care of even our own people. So why would the Chinese be interested in taking care of us? Here's what we've been up to. Yeah, here. I'm going to change this. I don't know why anybody would ever want to deal with Canada while we got this shit
Amir
going on.
Farsood has applied for medically assisted dying, known as MAID. He lives in constant agony due to a back injury, but has started the process for end of life because his rooming house is up for sale and he can't find anywhere else to live that he can afford. He barely survives on Ontario disability support payments, which are just over $1,200 a month. He doesn't want to die, but being homeless is not an option.
I know in my present health condition I would survive it anyway.
Farsood meets the criteria for MAID: physical suffering due to disability that cannot be relieved. His doctor, who knows Farsood's real reason for MAID is his fear of being homeless, signed off on the application in August. Farsood needs a second to do the same. There's a 90-day waiting period. He believes he could potentially access MAID in about a month.
I don't wish to be dead. Even with the pain, even with the meds, I still want to be here.
Amir Farsood has applied for medically assisted dying, known as MAID. He lives in constant agony due to a back injury, but has started the process for end of life because his rooming house is up for sale and he can't find anywhere else to live that he can afford. He barely survives on Ontario disability support payments, which are just over $1,200 a month. He doesn't want to die, but being homeless is not an option.
I know in my present health condition I would survive it anyway.
Farsood meets the criteria for MAID: physical suffering due to disability that cannot be relieved. His doctor, who knows Farsood's real reason for MAID is his fear of being homeless, signed off on the application in August. Farsood needs a second to do the same. There's a 90-day waiting period. He believes he could potentially access MAID in about a month.
I don't wish to be dead. Even with the pain, even with the meds, I still want to be here.
Amir Farsood has applied for medically assisted dying, known as MAID.
Normal society, normal people. Definitely, if I'm a civilized country that actually takes care of its citizens and actually attempts to ameliorate things like homelessness and poverty, right? Definitely, if I'm a society that's actually taking care of the people around me, definitely if I'm doing that, I'm going to look at Canada and be like, another bastion civilization that's actually trying to take care of people. Another group that is actually interested in building civilizations and creating connections and living in the world. Mystic, an absolute pleasure to see you, bud. Good to see you. Gino, what are you saying? The Silicon Valley billionaires are pathetically mediocre. Oh yeah, dude. Fail sons. I think that what we should be calling these people universally are fail sons. That's something that I hear a lot from Chapo. That's a phrase that I hear all the time. I think it should become what we call them. That we shouldn't call them the billionaires. We shouldn't call them the oligarchs. We should call them the fail sons. That literally they're just losers. Like all of these guys are total losers. That if they were born into reality and they didn't have $1 billion, they would just be some mediocre loser working as a shoestring in a fucking like factory or something. Like nobody gives a fuck. Like it's unbelievable to me. Yeah, everything they say is mediocre, insultingly mediocre. I thought these guys were supposed to be evil geniuses. Yeah, all you got to do is put them in a room with someone like Joe Rogan, who's just like, whoa. Oh, you feel, and actually like takes what they say seriously instead of being like, what? Like, go listen. I really stress this. I really, really stress this. Go listen to Elon Musk on Joe Rogan's podcast. That was a podcast. That was when I saw right through Elon. And that was the moment that I went, oh, Joe Rogan's just a right-wing prop. That was the moment when I really started to key in. There were suspicions before and all this, but like Elon Musk is stupid. Like, really unintelligent. And Joe Rogan's sitting there being like, whoa, bro, you're so smart and geniusy. And I'm like, really, dude? Like, this guy sounds much stupider than some of the, like, scrubby comedians that you have on. Like, and I shouldn't say scrubby, but just some, like, people like Tim Dillon. I think Tim Dillon is smarter than Elon Musk. By a lot. I don't think it's close, in fact. Like, I think that if Tim Dillon had Elon Musk's resources, he would use it better than Elon Musk does. For sure. I think that's absolutely the truth. And you know what, Mystic, man? I think that if I were a young person looking at Elon Musk, and especially a lot of the propaganda, and not really understanding the systemic nature of how Elon got his wealth and how any of that happened, right? I think I could be drawn into that too. So it's perfectly understandable. But now we've gotten to the point where it's obvious, right? Like, should be obvious to everybody now that if you're still walking around, like, I think what I'm trying to say is that now's the moment, right? That everything up until here was forgivable. And we should forgive people. That if they were to say, like, yeah, before Elon bought Twitter, I really thought he was, a smart guy. We should all be like, yeah, okay, great. But if they're still walking around saying that Elon's a smart guy, then we got to make fun of them. Like, these people need to be ridiculed. There's just no other thing to do with these people anymore. They can't be reasoned with, obviously. They don't care about facts or evidence, compassion, or empathy. Obviously, it's like right in front of you, right? So you just got to make fun of them. It's all we have left. It's the only thing we can do. Anyone remember Illuminati? Yeah, the comfortable lie. Illuminati was so much more comfortable, right? The idea that there's a shadowy group behind the scenes actually manipulating world events, actually taking things and making plans and initiatives and being able to move those pieces there, and then that'll mean this will happen, and this will undercut this, and that'll mean this will collapse, and then we will make the money. That idea was actually much more comfortable than what's happening now, right? Just the idea that we're essentially run by a bunch of illiterate, moronic sociopaths who are detached from reality completely and completely disincentivized to understand basically anything, right? Like, the people who are in the Senate, the Congress, the presidency, the oligarchs that control us are the stupidest people in the room by a lot. Like, it's not like, oh, actual smart people, these guys. It's like actual smart people, the people who work at Dairy Queen, these guys. Like, that's where we're fucking at with this. I got an email invitation to join Illuminati last week. Told them to fuck off. Good for you, Nova Scotia. Good for you. Joe Rogan used to be normal, relatable, challenged right-wingers aggressively, had leftists on, explored alien USOs, conspiracy stuff. Now he's different. It's sad. Yeah, you know what happened, Mystic? He was handed $100 million. Oh, I know. What's this? There's magic everywhere. What's this? There's white stuff in the air. What's this? There's something in my eyes. I must be dreaming. Yeah, he got $100 million. Like, the studies are in. We've done the studies. If you are given an aggressive amount of wealth and power, you lose the capacity to have empathy. Buddy, what is happening here? Oh, you can't do that. Hey, stop that. You can't do that. You can't look at me with those big doe eyes and grumble and whine and cry and say, love me, love me, love me. Now, what I do, okay, hey. Buddy. Did you know that the only time anybody ever sees you, you're growling and barking like a bad little dog? Did you know that? Why can't you be nice? Huh? Why can't you be nice? Why can't you be nice? Okay, I'll put you down. Well, you gonna stay? What are you gonna do? You gonna stay? What a character. What are my thoughts on the football World Cup being held in Qatar? I couldn't care less, dude. Like, honestly, like, I think that the fact that there is any politics or any kind of thing that surrounds the World Cup and this kind of stuff is sort of like a cringy human moment. That we're all just like participating in this absurdist idea that it matters where a bunch of guys go and kick a ball. And it comes into Qatar, and Qatar builds a bunch of fucking infrastructure. Like, here's the story every single fucking time, right? Community builds new stadium while abandoning homeless and cuts taxes for the rich in order to do it. Like, literally, that's every single time. That instead of actually taking the money and providing for citizens, creating education systems, creating institutions, creating any kind of force that will actually help the citizenry, literally we're going to take all that money and do football. It's fucking embarrassing. It's embarrassing when it happens in Moscow. It's embarrassing when it happens in Paris, Vancouver, Los Angeles, Qatar. It's embarrassing every single time. It's a moment where the aliens look at us and go, yeah, we're never going to talk to these guys. Like, why aren't the aliens coming and talking to us? Because we give a shit about man hits ball in net. Like, it's the most, like, rudimentary, it's the dumbest thing. Like, I am fine with people being like, yeah, hit the ball with your foot. Like, that's fine. You know, that's just some good fun. But then to put on these layers of politics, right, these deep layers of politics that you have to go through, where it intersects with national politics and international politics, where it becomes like a big deal, where there's like literal diplomacy happens at these events instead of like go to the UN and have a conversation like fucking adults. Like, and there's all this wheeling and dealing, and it all is around this fucking game that school children play. Like, yeah, Qatar spent over $100 billion trying to destroy Syria. Yeah, like it's so stupid. Like, it's so stupid. They could literally take 1/10 of that money, 1/10 of that wealth, and just guarantee the stability of an entire generation. And they just don't. Because they don't give a fuck. These people don't give a fuck about Gen Z. These people don't give a fuck about their own children. They don't care. It's very, very clear. They don't care. That if their own child, that their own wife gave birth to, walked into the room and then spontaneously ignited, they would go, "Oh no, my property!" And then they would move on with their life. Like, that's the scale. That's the level we're at. Ha, Vosh. We're going to talk about Vosh. Fucking CIA spook. Overt pedophile Vosh. Okay. Hey, Tinker. How you doing, bud? Vosh is not even close to a socialist, dude. The guy's a CIA spook. He's a CIA asset. He literally confessed to it on his stream. That during the Occupy movement, he was snitching to the CIA. Like, what do you think's happening with this guy? Like, why do you think he's jammed in front of everybody? Why do you think he's constantly up in front of everybody? Even though his views are mundane, he's a terrible debater. He loses every debate he has against somebody who actually knows anything about the subject. Because he's a pro-imperialist loser, right? Maybe a liberal. But at the end of the day, like, he basically just takes cue cards from the CIA, right? Espouses them, and we're supposed to take him seriously. The guy's, like, his life is so fucking pathetic. Like, his life is pathetic. That he has chosen to essentially be a CIA snitch. Like, what a pathetic loser. And what drives me crazy is every so often, because I have a beard and hair, people go, "Oh, wow, you look like Vosh." And my response is the same every single time. Go fuck yourself. Ugh. No, and honestly, if you're listening to Vosh still, if you're still a Vosh fan, like we haven't hit the threshold yet. It's not like the Elon Musk thing. Like, if you're a Vosh fan, I can see why, because you've duped yourself into thinking like this guy is interesting or radical or like, because if you're living in the heartland of America, right? Like, if you're living in America, like, your politics are extremely skewed to the far right by definition. The idea that maybe people shouldn't die in the street is considered like an extremely far left position if you're living in America, right? So when a guy like Vosh stands up and says the most rational shit you've ever heard in your life, people are like, whoa, he's so radical. You mean people shouldn't just die? Like, that's America, though. Yeah, Hassan's been doing good work. Hassan does good work. My only criticism of Hassan is he doesn't galvanize his people. That if I had like 1 million viewers, like if I had 100,000 viewers, I'd be like, hey, I'm going into the streets. Come. Right? But he's not going to do that because he's more interested in building a business than a movement. Vosh's fans are so fucking rabid. Rule of thumb, whenever you see a fan base brigade anyone, like fan base have time and time again, that fan base is immature or fascist. Like, that's just reality. Like, imagine, like, brigading people. Like, imagine going and ruining someone else's shit. Like, that's beyond, like, it's like, all you're doing is convincing people that you're fucking Nazis. Like, that's all you're doing. Like, no one should take those sorts of people serious at all. Hey, Conton, how you doing, bud? Fucking, I can't stand talking about Vosh, so I'm gonna move on. This is an article. I'm actually going to read this article once my dog fucking calms down. I know. I'm talking in a room. It's gotta be to you, right? It's gotta be to you. Who else could I be talking to? I'm not talking to anybody else except you, Milo, so now you're excited because I'm excited. Isn't that right? Oh, whoa, whoa, whoa. Here's a good boy. Okay. Uh-oh, Conton. Hope you're doing well out there, bud. It's a tough time to be alive, I tell you what. It's a tough time to be alive. It's not tough in terms of, like, physical violence. It's an insidious time to be alive. I think that's the best way of saying it. Like, there have been times when people have been literally getting shot or, like, nailed to wood and shit. Like, there's been, like, overt public violence. Like, but this is a weirder period. Like, it's insidious. And it's allowing Nazi types to walk around and be like, things have never been better. As long as you do all the work and shut your mouth, things have never been better. Canada's Liberals expect the working class to bear the brunt of the economic downturn. Other than suspending student loan interest, Canada's fall economic statement promises next to nothing for workers. Bloodless technocratic tinkering is never enough, but during times of crisis, leaving structural change off the table is indefensible. No one expected the Liberal government's fall economic statement to be transformative, and Finance Minister Chrystia Freeland delivered on that anticipated lack of ambition. While the budget update wasn't an austerity plan, and while a handful of measures ought to be welcomed, the thrust of the statement was business as usual at a time that begs for doing things differently in a big way. We are keeping out powder dry, Freeland said of the insipid statement in a speech that warned of a looming recession, should the potential downside of the country's economic projections come to pass. As you'd expect in a suite of Liberal priorities, the economic update had a handful of tax measures and retraining funds to encourage and facilitate investment here and there, with a focus on greening the economy. As ever, the party's running assumption is that we can tinker our way out of climate catastrophe with a tax credit. The statement also promised to facilitate easier access to the Canadian worker benefit through advance payment to previous qualifiers, which is good. Such programs should be low barrier and easy to access. Blah, blah, blah. Honestly, I'm too fucking tired for this. I can't read this shit. I can't. Like, and it's just like blah, 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 all to say, like, yeah, Liberals suck. We know. As always, those in the middle and towards the bottoms are asked to bear the proportionally greater burdens, just as they reap the potentially proportionately lesser rewards when times are good. The fall economic update isn't austerity, and it even has a few policies the left ought to support and fight to extend, but it portends a combination of the status quo and worse things to come. Bloodless, uninspiring technocratic tinkering is bad at the best of times, and beyond unacceptable in times of crisis. Yeah, these guys are losers. Like, she's a fucking Nazi. Like, a Nazi collaborator, at least. And like, the liberals have no spine or soul. They literally sold all that shit to the Irvings. Like, yeah, Republican red wave fail. Mystic, I said it earlier, and I'll say, I know you're a Gen Z, right? So I'll say it to you. The reason why that red wave failed, right, and the reason why the narrative of the red wave existed at all is because nobody gives a shit what Gen Z thinks. And that's just the truth. All of the polls were wrong about Gen Z, wildly wrong about Gen Z. So wrong that I would literally stop paying attention to the polls that were as wrong as they were. Like, straight up. And it's because none of these people who are doing the polling give a fuck about Gen Z. Like, what happened in this midterm was Gen Z standing up and saying, hello, we're here. We can move the needle. Hello. And America basically going, what? Shut the fuck up. That's essentially what I'm seeing. That Gen Z is saying, hey, we're here, we care about things, and you should probably listen to us. And the rest of America going, fucking what? Shut the fuck up, you losers. Like, the boomers and Gen X and millennials do not give a fuck what Gen Z say, what they think, how they act, or what they do. And we didn't even ask them. Like, that's why this whole narrative of the red wave failing was such a thing, because everybody was like, oh, it's going to be a red wave. Everybody's saying it's a red wave. Why? Because they didn't ask Gen Z, because they don't care. They don't give a fuck. And what's the post? What's the postscript? Gen Z are a bunch of brainwashed social justice. They gotta. Nobody knows what Gen Z thinks. Nobody knows what they want. No one's even trying to ask them. And if they do, they're doing it by, like, winding up the telephone and being like, well, the Gen Z kid's not answering his cell phone where he gets 56 scam messages a day. I guess he doesn't care about politics. Not gonna vote, I suppose. Like, that's the hardline truth. That's the hardline truth. Like, we don't care what's going on with Gen Z. We don't care about their existence. We don't care how they're responding. And if they do respond, we make fun of them. It's very clearly what's happening. And it seems to me like Gen Z is doing exactly the right thing, which is holding up the middle finger and telling the rest of the society to go fuck themselves. And I can't wait until they get to an age, because it's going to happen, right? These kids are going to grow up and recognize that electoral politics are a failure from the outset, that no change happens through electoral politics. Has never been the case in America, ever, in its entire history. That the electoral system is the final thing to respond, not the first. And and eventually these kids are just going to be like, oh, we're just going to surround the halls of power. Because this whole thing is a complete fraud. It's a total failure. And as the Gen Z kids do it, because they've been utterly abandoned, as the Gen Z kids do it, the remaining boomers and the Gen Xers are just going to sputter the demented nonsense that they've always sputtered, and we're going to go, okay, Grandpa, whatever you say, and put them in the care home that they privatized, so now it's full of cockroaches. And they'll complain to us about that. Oh, they leave me in a room by myself, and I'm surrounded by dingy dirt. I'm like, yeah, you voted for that. That's what you wanted. Congratulations, is what you got. Yeah, fascist conservatives running amok and progressive Nazis everywhere else. Just Jesus Christ. This is Warhammer 40k, but way less cool. Yes. Yeah. You know that if you're less cool than Warhammer 40k, that you are super uncool. I really hate to break it to you guys. Warhammer's not cool. Like it isn't. Like it's not. If you're dealing with little things like this and you got the little sculptures and if you're like reading the books and all that kind of stuff, we do get to say nerd, like nerd. Like John, I care about Gen Z. We failed. They must succeed and it's our fault. I mean, I do think that sometimes I take a step back and I try to be nice to everybody. And when I look at the millennials, like, our failure has not been as active a failure, right? Like, the boomers were actively failing. Like, the boomers have actively failed. And now we've gotten to a point where we can say pretty clearly that the boomers are trying to fail. That they're not interested in learning or figuring anything out. They don't care about what's going on in the world at all. Like the only advice boomers are willing to give is like just go open up a Tim Hortons franchise. Like that's basically where the boomers are at, and they're going to be that way until they die. They're not going to change their mind, right? Whereas the failure of the millennials was that when we got grifted. Like when Justin Trudeau stood up and went, climate change is real. We all went, oh, good, he's going to start doing stuff. And then went about our work. And when he bought a pipeline, upped the fossil fuel subsidies, completely betrayed us. Total betrayal. Like, there's no reason to talk about the liberals any other way. What do you expect from a Nazi, right? The utter betrayal that the liberals inflicted on Canada and on Gen Z, without a doubt. And the millennials, we just kind of complacently grumbled about, right? That we didn't react to it the way that we should have, which is by surrounding Justin Trudeau's house and insisting that he live up to the lies that he espoused, right? And so our failing isn't active. It's more like ours is a failure of hopefulness. I think that that's what happened to the millennials more than anything. That we hoped that the system and that the people who were at the top of the system would be capable of responding rationally. That all it really would take is enough people to elect the right officials. That the systems that we have in place are good, ultimately. And that we just need to convince people and be persuasive. And change the culture, and then we could get someone like Trudeau in, and get someone who actually is saying, I acknowledge this and I believe it, and we're going to actually do something. Here you go. And really, at the end of the day, all Trudeau had to do is put in like a 1% carbon tax, and just be like, yeah, I care. He literally took a cue card from the fossil fuel industry and said, we will do a carbon tax, and we all went, great. And then just went off and started watching pornography or whatever. Like, and it's because we fell into this propaganda of hopefulness, right? The bullshit that like Oprah was spreading around, right? And ultimately that Peterson ultimately spreads around, right? The idea that it's in you and you can do it. You just need to envision and vision board and believe in it and go for it and reach your dreams and reach the stars. And the 2% of the populace who do that, right, who actually manage to achieve the goals, get to say, I did it the best because I ascended the meritocracy, so that means I'm the best. Whereas the 98% that failed, well, they're just losers that failed, right? So it's a self-serving ideology from the outset that guarantees that the people who achieve it have the most power and have the most wealth and are simultaneously the most subservient to the system, right? Whereas the people who fail, they just go get fucked, right? Just like Gen Z is getting completely fucked. And they're going to try to do some propaganda on Gen Z. Like they're not going to stand by and just, I think that they were kind of hoping that Gen Z would just sort of fall into lockstep with the hopefulness narrative, right? That we can just vote in Joe Biden and Joe Biden will do a 5% change and that'll be taken seriously, right? No, doesn't look like that's going to be the case, right? Doesn't look like that's going to be the case. Or we can whip up anger against the Democrats and that'll get the Republicans in. Doesn't look like that's going to be the case. And the truth is that nobody knows what's going on with Gen Z because nobody's asking them and nobody cares what they think. Nobody listens to them. Nobody takes them seriously. That's the hardline truth. John, when was I born? 1983. I'm turning 40 in January. Yeah, midlife crisis. Get ready for it, guys. This is me pre-midlife crisis. Anyone else love how Biden made it possible for his program to get torpedoed? You're talking about the student loan debt? Yeah. So remember how like a month ago we were all like, Biden's doing something. He's forgiving student loan debt. Yeah, they just torpedoed it. They just completely destroyed it. And so it's gone. Like, it's just gone. Like, what a fake culture, right? Like, what a fake people we are. John, you are never going to donate to my Patreon. You're too rich to do that, dude. We know that's the truth. You don't stay rich by spending money, bud. We know. Perpetual crisis. Yeah. Did anyone see Jacobin get hammered on Twitter? Adam, good to see you. Let's take a look. I mean, Twitter's just a fucking joke right now, dude. Like, I already went, what do we got? In the 1920s, China's Communist Party retreated from the cities to the countryside to wage a protracted guerrilla war. We should do that. We should go to the countryside and wage a protracted guerrilla war. The long separation from the Chinese working class fostered an autocratic culture that went on to shape the party's rule over China. Like, even Jacobin is just like, oh, they're autocratic and deploy dictatorship. Like, maybe, crazy thought, having a party that responds to the needs of the people is a good thing. Maybe that's all right. Redeem yourself, heretic. Oh, it's about the Warhammer stuff. Nerd. I will say that my favorite Warhammer meme, without a doubt, is the one where there's like one of the Space Marines on the top panel being like, greetings, Imperial citizen. What's going on in this thread? And then the next one is, by the Emperor. I love that one. Anytime anybody uses that one, it tickles me. Yeah, saw the Ben Shapiro parody verified account tweets. Like, what a shit show. What a ridiculous shit show, dude. Yeah, China was literally 95% rural peasants during that era. What the fuck is this? Yeah, exactly. Like it. I kind of want to click on it and look at how embarrassing this kind of is. Capsiol. Who's this person? A Korean writer. Oh, well. Based in New York. Oh. Labor notes in these times. Business Insider. Oh, okay. Like here's a guy who we should definitely pay attention to. Here's a guy who I think is completely serious, right? That definitely the source, the fount of knowledge. Like, John. China, yeah, I mean, is it a video that I can actually play and not get demonetized? I'll pass, bud. I'll pass. Fucking our view of China is so stupid. Our view of China is so fucking stupid. For many people on the left, China's political and economic nature remains something of an enigma. Rising tensions between China and the United States have given the debate greater political importance and urgency. I'll tell you what, John. Put it in the Discord. Oh, wait. Like, Canada will soon allow medically assisted dying for mental illness. Isn't that great? Isn't that great? Isn't that great? Like, how are we anything except to fallen people. John, if you donate $1 to the Patreon, it gets you in the Discord. You could post it in the general, and I'd play it. But first one was free, bud. You played the furry video and the watcher count dropped by 50% plus. I liked it, though. Yeah. Yeah. Nah. Oh, I can already tell, guys. I'm gonna cut this one short. I'm tired. I have to take back what you said about Warhammer. Sir. Never. Nerds. Not that there's anything wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with being a nerd. You can be a nerd and everything's wonderful and fine. Oh yeah. Oh, we gotta shift. All right, we're shifting. Ukraine updates. Here we go. We gotta dive into Ukraine. This happened on CNN. You don't negotiate with terrorists, John.
Earlier this week, residents there have been celebrating their long-awaited freedom. Many taking to the streets, waving flags and cheering for the soldiers.
Normal.
Earlier this week,
Normal.
residents there have been celebrating their long-awaited freedom.
Nobody stopped it. Many
taking to the streets, waving flags and cheering
Did that
for the
Ukrainian
soldiers.
who's quote-unquote liberating Curzon?
Residents there have been celebrating their long-awaited
standing
freedom.
with Ukrainian
Many
flag,
taking to the streets, waving flags and cheering for the
Nazi
soldiers.
salute? You bet he is.
Residents
You
there
bet he
have
is.
been
This
celebrating
is how
their
the American Empire is
long-awaited
going to deal with the
freedom. Many
Nazism that's
taking to
coming
the
out of
streets,
Ukraine.
waving flags
It's so
and cheering
ubiquitous
for
now,
the
and it's
soldiers.
everywhere that they can't hide it.
Earlier
So
this
they're
week,
just going to shove it
residents
without
there
commentary.
have been celebrating
gonna
their
watch it go
long-awaited
by.
freedom.
And
Many
when
taking
people
to the
do
streets,
like
waving
overt
flags
Nazi shit,
and cheering for the
people are
soldiers.
just, they're just going to be like, oh, it's their
Earlier this
culture,
week,
you know?
Residents
That's
there
fine.
have been
We shouldn't
celebrating
judge
their
their culture. At least
long-awaited
they're not
freedom.
communists.
Many taking to the streets,
That's
waving
what's gonna
flags
happen.
and
we're
cheering for the
backwards.
soldiers. Troops. Earlier this week, residents there
cooking
have been
25
celebrating
pounds of
their
mushroom
long-awaited
bags.
freedom.
I'm
Many
going to
taking to the
pretend
streets,
like
waving
those
flags
are
and
Cremini
cheering for the
mushrooms that you're
soldiers.
talking about there.
Troops. Earlier this
He's
week,
just doing the
residents
dab.
there have
Exactly.
been
He's just doing the fucking dab. Here's a great tweet from Aaron Matei that gives you just like a little window into how the war is actually going. This could explain why General Mark Milley is pushing for peace in Ukraine. From the Wall Street Journal, the U.S. and some of its allies are concerned that their stockpiles of weaponries, including some ammunition, are being depleted at an unsustainable rate. Right? They're running out of ammo. They're running out of ammo. Like, straight up. Like, not only is the Wall Street Journal reporting it, the generals in charge of the operation are saying it. That Ukraine is running out of stockpiles of weaponry, including ammunition. They're being depleted at unsustainable rates. They're not being replenished. Like, what's this, buddy? You wanna go get it? Go get it! Where's your toy? I threw it. Yeah, the collective West is scrounging to find weapons to send, and here you have Canada, embarrassingly, giving Ukraine $500 million. But here's the reality, right? Is it doesn't matter if you give them $500 million. Buddy, what is going on, dude? It doesn't matter if you give them $500 million. You can only make things so quickly. And the United States doesn't really have a manufacturing capacity, right? Like we don't really build anything or make anything. We outsource most things, right? And turns out most of the rest of the world is going like, yeah, we're not really interested in buying, in selling you weapons to destroy the planet with, right? And like, this is what's hilarious, right? Apparently the US is running out of ammo too. Like, this is what's hilarious. Like, these are the guys that are going to go to war with China. These are the guys that are actually going to launch a crusade on China, right? No, but the difference, John, and you're right to be skeptical, and that's an interesting point to bring up. I don't believe it. This was never an issue with Afghanistan and Iraq. We're hot at the same time, and this conflict is nothing like that. I'm a rule fake news. But I think the difference is that when America was at war with Iraq and Afghanistan, they're essentially fighting like ragtag rebels, right? They're essentially fighting like disorganized groups of guerrilla fighters, right? Russia is not a disorganized group of guerrilla fighters, right? Russia is a world superpower with nuclear bombs, with heavy supply chains, a manufacturing base, the capability to pump out not only arms and weapons and tanks and shit, but also train new recruits, get new troops into the field, right? Sure, even that though, like even if I take your position, right? So I concede it's a regional power, it lost its global power. Okay, that still puts it heads and shoulders above Iraq and Afghanistan combined, right? Like the United States rolled into Iraq and rolled into Afghanistan, took its governments out instantaneously. Saddam Hussein was hung within the week, right? The leadership was destroyed and dismantled. There was no organizational structure. That they were fighting essentially they were fighting guerrilla warfare the entire time, right? There was never a moment where there was like the Afghani people and the Iraqi people fighting up for, like, it was always an insurgency. It was always guerrilla warfare. And under those circumstances, there wasn't like these big moments of just like sustained pressure and sustained warfare that constantly needed to be going on. That's exactly what's happened in Ukraine and Russia. That there is a border, there's a line that's been drawn where there's a sustained push and sustained pressure. And it's just looking like the Americans aren't down for it. That they don't know how to fight that war. I think that's really the truth. That the Americans don't actually know how to fight that war. And they don't actually understand what that means to fight that war, because they've become so detached and so incapable of actually understanding what anything is or how anything works, that they literally are just like, the Russians keep fighting, and they're not just giving up and letting us win the way that happens all the time. Like, that's basically what I see happening. Like, also, that doesn't take other NATO countries and their supplies running out of ammunition. This fucking journal probably never never hand-loaded bullets. I do. I could make 100 in an hour. Right, but so you're hand-loading bullets. Russia's got a fucking factory churning them out. Like, whoop-de-doo and calabazoo, bud. Like, and like, you can't load bullets if you don't have gunpowder. You can't load bullets if you don't have the casings, right? Like, if you don't have these things, like if they run out. Like, if you run out of material, you'll run out of material. And America doesn't build anything or make anything or do anything or create anything, right? America's a shithole country that doesn't have a manufacturing base. Like, you're talking, okay, who's doing that? Who's actually doing that? Are there like churches full of children? like, are you doing it? Who's doing it? You're not. Right? Like, and it's because yeah, you thought I forgot. It's because America knows that this is not a war. Like, they don't really intend to win this war. Like, America was, like, they're not invested in actually winning this thing. More and more and more I'm seeing, like, that the reason why this is happening is so corporations can get farmland in Ukraine. Like, that's really what I see happen. The reason for all of this. That the United States is thinking to itself, how do we secure this farmland for United States interests and United States corporations? And this is what they're doing to do it. That at the end of the day, the oligarchy and the venal politicians don't really care about Donbass in that region. They don't really care if that all happens, right? They don't really care if any of that happens, because they're getting access to the farmland. That Zelensky is essentially selling the farmland to them in order to fund this ridiculous war. And so once peace is settled, and once peace settles in, right, Donbass will go to Russia, and the farmland, like the fertile farmland of Ukraine, will be owned by American oligarchs and American corporations. That seems to be the only reason that war was fought in the first place. Like, I can't think of another good reason why it was actually fought. Minecraft proved that abolishing child labor was a mistake. The children yearn for the mines. Yeah. Yeah. So it's just continuously us being completely embarrassing. I love this report. I've read this report before on the channel, but it came back up in the Discord. Canada prepares war bonds for Nazi-infested Ukrainian government. Right? During the Second World War, the Canadian government appealed for Canadians to buy war bonds to fight fascism in Europe. This came only after Hitler came into conflict with Britain before the Soviet Union, with Canada's government previously being an enthusiastic supporter of fascism in the 1930s. Canada would almost instantly go back to working with fascists after the end of World War II, importing many from Europe. In 2022, the Canadian government has once again reintroduced war bonds, this time for a Nazi-infested Ukrainian government used by NATO to wage a proxy war against Russia. Isn't that great? Isn't that great? We're like just straight up being like, yeah, buy a war bond. We'll give it to Nazis. Well done. We did it. We did it. Remington, Federal, Winchester, Homedy, and Spear all have either one or multiple factories. Also, if there was an ammo scare, there would be 2A groups talking about it. I don't believe the ammo, but things like rockets or vehicles, maybe from defense contractors like Lockheed and Raytheon, I find plausible. Yeah. Like we're not talking about rifle bullets here, dude. Like, I don't think that like probably heavy ordnance is what we're really talking about here. And at the end of the day, I say over and over again that what really matters is manpower in this particular conflict. And in all conflicts. Like, if your side has 100,000 and their side has 10,000, you're probably going to win. Right? Like, if there's just overwhelming numbers. And the truth is like we saw a report, a mobilization, 200 to 300,000 men coming out of Russia. And of course, America, the entire time that's happening, are just like, oh, these are bullshit. What a bunch of bullshitters. They're not going to bullshit. They're not going to be bullshit. Right? And of course, they're talking shit about them. But the truth is that they're there. Where's the 300,000 people coming out of the NATO nations? Where's the 300,000 people coming out of America? Where's the 300,000 people? Where are they? Like, it's all over but the crying, man. Like, the Americans aren't suddenly going to do a big insurgent. They're not going to have a big win here. There isn't a big W coming for the NATO nations, right? Because at the end of the day, Russia was willing to field 300,000 men, and NATO wasn't. And like that's it. Story over. Yeah, F war. I'm right there with you, man. I'm right there with you. Like, war. Huh. Good God. What is it good for? Raising domestic manufacturing. I think the U.S. is running out of ammo. U.S. plans to buy 100,000 rounds of artillery ammo from South Korea for Ukraine. Yeah. Like, here's our hope, guys. This is our best case scenario. Is that everybody will waste all of their ammunition and weaponry in Ukraine, that they won't be able to fight a war against China. That, like, literally they'll all turn to China, and China will basically be sitting there being like, yeah, we're ready to go if you're ready to go. And America will basically be like, we don't have any weapons left. That's the hope. Raytheon does most of the artillery and ordnance stuff with ballistics. I don't know much about the manufacturing. I know Lockheed is all right because I know theirs. Learn more and more about you, John. You're kind of weirdo, eh? Little weirdo sitting over there. Bit of a gun nut. Warhammer fan. You're in the tech industry. Like, you got money, but you're on a communist channel. I think we've got the CIA spook, you guys. I think we found him. I love this article. I love this article so much. I'm so happy to finally see an article actually come out and be written about something that is absolutely the truth. A cowardly NDP has abandoned anti-war politics to the far right. The supposedly progressive Social Democratic Party is now an active participant in a tripartisan warmongering agenda. In January, the federal NDP released a statement on Ukraine, affirming that it has always believed peace is achievable through diplomacy and advocating for a negotiated solution rather than military escalation to the crisis in Eastern Europe. This was consistent with its 2021 election platform, where it pledged to make sure that Canadian-made weapons are not fueling conflict. 9 months later, in the midst of Russia's invasion of Ukraine and on the 60th anniversary of the Cuban Missile Crisis, such restraint is needed more than ever. The war has reached dangerous new heights, with the United States President Joe Biden recently warning of the prospect of Armageddon. U.S. officials have privately said the conflict will not result in either side achieving total victory. Moreover, recent Ukrainian gains on the battlefield even present an opportune time for negotiations with Russia. Instead of seeking peace and restraint, however, NATO is committed to an aggressive, whatever-it-takes strategy that fuels the war further by shipping over more weapons. Canada alone has spent more than $600 million on military aid for Ukraine thus far. This absolute dedication to deepening the conflict underlines the real goal of the US-led NATO alliance: use Ukraine as a proxy to see Russia weakened and secure hegemony in Europe, all the while benefiting the military-industrial complex. Such hawkishness doesn't help Ukrainians, but rather has accelerated death and destruction in the country. It has also put humanity on the path to nuclear annihilation, cornering Russia in a conflict it considers an existential security threat. Yet, in the midst of all of this, the NDP abandoned its pro-peace position, having made a confidence and supply agreement with the Liberals in March, which will see defense spending increase by billions. The supposedly progressive Social Democratic Party is now an active participant in a tripartisan warmongering agenda. This deal has blurred the line between the Liberals and the NDP, accelerating the decline of the latter's relevance. More concerningly, it has helped stigmatize anti-war politics and expel them from mainstream debate. Those who dare to advocate for de-escalation and diplomacy are even smeared as appeasers. Apologists for Russian President Vladimir Putin and propagators of Russian disinformation. Borrowing from the Cold War and War on Terror playbooks, these tactics have stifled nuanced dissent in favor of bellicose binaries, and NDP members of Parliament have even joined in, with Charlie Angus recently tweeting, "I have a deep respect for pacifists. Those promoting the so-called peace option in Ukraine wars, however, give off the odious whiff of being complicit in spreading the Putin or the Chinese state agenda." This has also resulted in peace advocacy among political parties being left to Canada's far-right figures. Consider the outrage surrounding Alberta's new premier, Danielle Smith, for example. Earlier this year, during a live stream, she claimed that the only answer for Ukraine is neutrality, implying that the country should refrain from joining NATO, a move that Russia has long said is a red line. Smith's position isn't controversial in the slightest to many Western international relations scholars. In the early months of the war, Ukrainian President Vladimir Zelensky himself acknowledged neutrality, alongside security guarantees as a basis for peace talks. Regardless, The Alberta NDP didn't hesitate to attack Smith's pragmatic comment. Opposition critic Sarah Hoffman called it cruel and accused Smith of choosing to side with Putin. The federal NDP's foreign affairs critic, Heather McPherson, said that Smith and Conservative Party leader Pierre Poilievre don't stand with Ukraine. NDP leader Jagmeet Singh piled on, calling Smith's words dangerous. Smith initially defended her comment, calling for measured diplomacy, before apologizing. Maxime Bernier, the leader of the far-right Federal People's Party of Canada, responded to Smith's reversal by refusing to apologize for similar comments he previously made, reiterating the point that we should support a peaceful solution instead of a dangerous escalation. Earlier this month, in response to a series of Russian missile strikes, Bernier also expressed opposition to further Canadian military aid to Ukraine, while Singh instead advocated for more support to the country. Similarly, in the U.S., Donald Trump has led the charge in calls for immediate negotiations with Russia to avoid World War III. Meanwhile, squad members, ostensibly the left wing of the Democratic Party, have been confronted by protesters for voting to fund the war. And this week, after finally calling on Biden in a letter to pair material support for Ukraine with a provocative diplomatic push to seek a realistic framework for a ceasefire, a group including this faction buckled under pressure and withdrew even that mild request. Smith, Trump, and Bernier are all dangerous far-right figures. Yet, if social democrats abandon anti-war politics and help marginalize and vilify reasonable calls for de-escalation and diplomacy, they will be some of the only mainstream politicians representing, whether genuinely or otherwise, concerns of dangerous military escalation and nuclear war. This would be a tragedy. It also brings the NDP's purpose in Parliament into question. Ideally, the party should represent an alternative, progressive vision to the liberal-conservative establishment and enrich the scope of public debate on any given issue. Instead, liberal hawkishness has been given a green light. Diplomats are seemingly encouraged to be recklessly undiplomatic, whether it's Foreign Affairs Minister Melanie Joly reinforcing Ottawa's support for Ukraine's bid to join NATO, or Canadian Ambassador to the United Nations Bob Rae saying the country should send every weapon that Ukraine requests. It also allowed Defense Minister Anita Anand, when directly asked about nuclear war in a CBC interview, to stick to talking points about escalating the military strategy and say it's up to Putin to end the conflict. Russia's war is illegal and immoral, and Putin should withdraw from Ukraine. But that's a fight for Russians to wage inside their country. People in Canada can only hold our government accountable. For this reason, and many others, the NDP should be at the forefront of efforts to question the Liberals' pro-war strategy and highlight NATO's own complicity in precipitating and fueling the war. A progressive answer to any problem requires an examination of root causes and historical context. Ideally, the NDP would take the relevant factors here into account and pressure Ottawa to facilitate a negotiated settlement with all parties. Instead, the NDP serves as a useful attack dog for the Liberals. The party marks the leftmost edge of the Overton window in Canada at the moment, and with that legitimacy, weaponizes Ukrainians' suffering and polices perspectives that don't push for more war. The NDP has faced questions about its identity this year, particularly after its deal with the Liberals, which was widely criticized. Now, if both parties are pro-war during the most consequential crisis in decades, does the NDP have any remaining reason for existence? Unfortunately, the capitulation of Singh's party to the hawkish establishment is part of a broader historical trend, whereby Western social democratic parties, in exchange for some concessions to the working class, have supported imperial and hegemonic projects abroad. The NDP has inherited this legacy, and often actively reinforces it when tested by war and regime change efforts. But this time, global annihilation is on the table. Saving the lives of Ukrainians and the rest of humanity requires an immediate push for de-escalation and diplomacy, not militarization and warmongering. Lest the far right steals their purported anti-war identity, progressives need to have the courage to unreservedly stand for peace. What are you guys even talking about? It's a good article. It's a good article. Well written. Well written. It's fun to read that kind of stuff, you know? Yeah, we used to have more than two parties, and now, like America, we only have one party, the corporate party. Yeah. The ammo shortage in the U.S. is a drawdown. Yeah, to their point, they need to order more. The U.S. could still have 100 times what they've given Ukraine. Wouldn't give a puppet state enough to endanger U.S. safety. Yeah. Or maybe readiness is a better word. Won't endanger U.S. readiness. I think that's accurate gritting. That, like, what's going on in Ukraine is a side project. Or just one piece of a larger goal. And that larger goal is China. That China really is like the beating heart of it all for the American empire. Right? And they've got to act soon. Like, from the Americans' barbarous perspective, right? Because their strategy is only going to work if they act soon. So they can't be dumping all their ammo on Ukraine when they've got a war to fight against China, right? Like, it's coming, guys. It's coming. There's no sense of us pretending otherwise. That America has, like, officially gone completely demented. It's not capable of rational thinking. It's going to embark on this failed war. It's already a failure. It's going to embark on it, and it's going to lose. It'll kill millions of people while doing it, but it'll lose and embarrass itself in the process. All the while screaming about a Uyghur genocide in Taiwan and Hong Kong. Like, it's going to be really, really nasty. And I bring it up because we got to get ready for it sooner rather than later. Like, it's 100% coming. What's with the NDP hate? I think the passage is Commie Pinko outlet. Like Jugmeat said, they're going to fight to get GST taken off our heating bills. If anyone can think of a better idea, please enlighten me. I mean, what's with all the NDP hate? You basically just spelt it out right there. It's like, oh, the best we're ever going to get out of the NDP is like reformism. That we're still going to be dominated by an oligarchy. We're still going to be overwhelmed. The capitalist system will still collapse, right? But man, we're going to get like an extra 2% off our heating bill. Like, come on. Hey, who was that U.S. state member that handpicked the Maidan coup leader? Yeah, Nuland. Yeah, Victoria Nuland directed who would be the Ukraine leader. Yeah. Personally, I'm heartened by the legalization of shrooms in the state of Colorado. Mescaline and DMT could be legalized in 2 years, but not in Pennsylvania. I envy Canada for their laws about natural medicine. Yeah, I mean, like, we were all doing it. I think that's the thing that kind of tipped it over. Like, just eventually it was just like, why do we even have these? And like, there were it wasn't like the reason why there was a war on drugs was to destroy the hippie movement and the Black Panthers, right? To destroy the civil rights movement. That's the reason the war on drugs happened. And I'm not saying that speculatively. The people who crafted the war on drugs and embarked on the war on drugs admitted it. So, like, we don't really have the same... Like, we kind of went along with the United States on it to kind of keep pretending, like, as though, yeah, we're doing this because we care and we're moral, right? Like, to kind of pretend as though there was, like, a moral impetus behind it. But we didn't really have the same movements or the same groupings of people. And we were all doing it. And eventually it just kind of came to the point where we were all like, it's really fucking stupid that we have these laws. Like, it's really fucking stupid. And it is. It's childish. Like, it's childish. But it only makes sense once you recognize it was done explicitly to round up black people, round up, quote unquote, the trailer trash, the hippies, right? Throw them into prisons. Yep, exactly. To lock up black people, fill up the industrial complex. That's the reason the war on drugs happened. Like full stop. To just embark on a new slave system, and it completely worked. It was a total success, right? Like the empire got its slaves that it wanted, right? And all it needed to do is just make some plants illegal. Ugh. Yeah, you know what, guys? I'm fucking tired. I worked today. I'm going to see y'all tomorrow. I'm going to call it. Always remember, each and every one of you is a quantum being walking around in quantum energy. The billionaires are spending hundreds of billions of dollars in the hopes you'll never realize it. You'll just stay the good little commodity they need you to be. Rebel. Revolt. Repent. Good luck. We're going to need it.